could go either way. All right. So, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Qumulex Radio. I am Josh. Aaron is on assignment and will not be with us, but we do have a super awesome guest today. We have Benji Bolick, otherwise known as the Dork, has joined us. And there's a lot of applause out there, once they see it. We like having shiny faces that are very active. So, Benji, for those who are not active in social media, would you give them just a brief intro elevator pitch about who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so Benji Bolick, like you said, Josh. You might know me as the Dork. If you haven't heard of the Dork or know what the Dork community is, make sure you hop on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Let's get you engaged to the community. We have a lot of fun. Yeah, the Dork is something that I started during the pandemic. I would have never known it was grown into what it is today. But it basically the idea, and I can tell you a little bit of the backstory if you want on
Yeah,
how
let's
it
hear it.
started.
Yeah.
So the actual Dork came from my wife. When I first got hired on with Asa Abloy, I worked for Asa Abloy, by the way. And when I first got onboarded, I went through this foundation training, which is a very
Mm-hmm.
intense 6-week training that they take you through all the different manufacturing plants. You're on the product line, you get to meet the product managers, you put together all the product, you take it apart. You learn so much. It's like drinking from the fire hose of Asa Abloy. On the weekends we would have off and I'd fly back home and spend time with the family and kids, but they would give us homework. And so one night my wife walked into the bedroom. We were getting ready for bed, and I was already in bed, but I had a Sergeant Technical Manual out, and I was reading through, like some
As
pretty
one does.
yes, yeah, as one does, as a dork does, right? And she said like, "Oh, you are such a dork," and I'm like, "Dork." Like, babe, do you know what you just said there? That's a pun. That's dork, right? Like, so that's how the actual name came into play. But a couple of years went by, and we had this virus was going around. There was
Yeah.
a pandemic or something.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of changed the world and really woke up people to this digital world, digital
Yeah.
era that we live in now. And I was in end user sales. I was out used to visiting, calling on hospitals and school systems, and overnight things changed. I went
Yeah.
from going out there and knocking on doors to, hey, all those doors are locked and you're not allowed to come out and visit. And so I was looking for creative ways to stay connected to my relationships that I'd built, mostly here in Oregon, and Southwest Washington was my territory. But so I stumbled on LinkedIn. I found out a lot of people in the security industry was on LinkedIn. I always thought LinkedIn was like my dad's super serious social media. But
Yeah.
especially during the pandemic, I'm sure you saw that the LinkedIn just exploded.
Yeah.
Um, and I was thankfully able to like kind of catch that wave as LinkedIn was growing. I started producing content on there, and the Dork was born from there. But it started from this Slack channel that we had with our team here. Well, it was the local team at the time, and they had a channel on there called Teaching the Rookies. And I was still relatively new. You're new in this industry for the first 3 or so years, right? You're
Yeah.
still
Yeah. Or more.
there's a lot to take in, right?
Yes.
And so I would stumble upon this door and like not know what's wrong with it, but I knew there was something wrong with it. So I'd take a picture of it and then upload it into that Slack channel and just ask like some of the veterans that we had in our group. And they were like, "Oh my goodness, this is hilarious. Where did you find that? How did you find that?" And then they'd tell me everything that's wrong with it. And so I ended up learning a lot from those Slack channels, which was the idea, right? I'd ask a
Right.
question and they would respond. So during the pandemic, I was like, hey, if these veterans love the the posts that I'm doing on Slack, why shouldn't I do the same thing on LinkedIn? There's hundreds and thousands of people in the industry that would really get a kick out of this content. And so I would ask the question. I'd post a picture, and I guess it's been almost 4 years since I started the Dork journey, but it's blown up from there. So
So what do you think you've learned then? I mean, as far as, I love that story and how you ended up here. So, I mean, what have you learned on that Dork journey and all of this, involvement on LinkedIn and posting publicly and not just in the Slack channel? I mean, What has that done for you? I mean, what's that experience been?
Well, first of all, I got a promotion out of it. So that's one thing that I earned. And
There you go, kids.
uh,
Play on social media. It's good.
yeah, no, seriously, it was I remember I posted this video, and the video wasn't in that anything special. I was trying to get one of our proprietary keys copied at one of those key me kiosks, and of course
Hmm.
it couldn't copy it because even though it said copy any key, but when I posted that video, I got a call from the president of our division, and at the time that was my boss's boss. And when you get a call from the big boss, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I might be needing to look for a job here. I'm,
What did
I'm
I
in
do?
trouble here. Yeah, what did I do? And I'd been pushing the boundaries. Like not anyone in our industry was really doing what I was doing at the time. And
Hmm.
luckily, he was like, "No, Benji, I love the content that you're producing. How can we empower you? How can we enable you? How can we take it to the next level?" And that led to a couple more conversations with people on his team, and I got a promotion out of it. And now in the current role that I'm in as a senior digital communication specialist without a communications background at all, right? It's funny that I'm in digital marketing, but I don't have that background, and so
Anyone
uh,
else here going through that right now? I don't know.
yeah, right.
No, I mean, when you have a passion and you find enjoyment in something, you kind of find that niche. I think that's you end up where you belong. So I think that's it's a very inspiring story to me. I mean, I think it kind of goes along with that whole idea that, put your both feet in and your whole heart into something and, good things happen.
Yeah, and I really wasn't spending that much time on it at the time. Like I would wake up, I'd get my LinkedIn post out, and then I'd go do my sales calls at lunchtime. I would follow up on it, and then follow up with the rest of the day. And it really wasn't taking that much time. And I don't think people realize that like 15 minutes a day on LinkedIn, if you're consistently showing up, you're
Hmm.
creating content, and you're engaging on the platform, that's going to be reciprocated, but like tenfold.
Yeah.
Um, Things have increased since then, but in the beginning, it was only 15 minutes a day that I was really spending on that platform.
Yeah. So do you feel now, and don't use us as an example necessarily, but I mean, I feel like there is a lot more openness or maybe understanding to the importance and value of being on social media, of building a brand, whether that be personal or the corporate brand, maybe both. I mean, do you see that kind of changing where now if somebody were to jump on and do that, they're not going to be the only one?
Yeah, so I would say in the security industry, we're risk hesitant, right? Like we're
Yeah.
adverse to risk, and so people are see this as like this big risky step to jump in to start a podcast, to start posting, or to
Yeah.
start social media channel or a TikTok channel or something like that. I feel like as a whole, we're still hesitant to make that, but we're like companies like yours are breaking down that barrier. And I think the pandemic really woke up a lot of people digitally
Yeah.
to see how, and our company included, we saw once everything got shut down, we're like, oh, our digital presence is lacking. We really
Yeah.
need to beef that up. And from there, it's just kind of evolved and grown from there. So I can't tell you how important not only a personal brand is, but having a brand for your company online as well. Because nowadays and age, if you look at the generation that's coming up into the industry, the TikTok generation, the people
Yeah.
that grew up with one of these, right?
Yes.
Like they don't if, before they apply to a role, they will do their research, they will find their digital
Hmm.
content, they will look up your company values. And if you don't have a voice online, like they're gonna find that lacking. They'll be like, oh, this isn't really the company that I want to go with, because I'm like, they're not pushing the box. I want to make a difference. I want to make a splash. I want to be those flashy companies that are, out there, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think in today's world, quickly it's becoming that digital presence is like whether if I in the '90s, which I'm old enough to remember, I mean, if I looked up a company and they weren't even in the phone book, I'd think, oh, geez, this is not even like a legitimate organization. So
Yeah.
I think we're getting to a place, and that's why I'm wondering. I feel like outside of this industry, for sure, if I go out there and I don't, maybe 20 years ago it was, do they have a website, or is the website any good? I think that is a given. I think that just
Yeah.
happens. And now I think people look and say, okay, do they have a social presence or not? And I think that's a factor in how legitimate someone feels that a product or a company is.
Yeah, and not only that is like these younger, like the Gen Z and whatever the alpha, beta, whatever the next generation is, they're
Yeah, I'm losing
using,
track. Yeah.
yeah, they're using social media to search more than Google. So like the Google
Hmm.
is, you know, I if I don't know something, I go to Google. But the younger generation, if they don't know something, they're hopping on the TikTok, they're hopping on the Instagram because
Hmm.
they want to hear what their content creators are talking about, right? That what their
Hmm.
trusted people that they look to for advice, that's what they're looking for is like, hey, have they talked about this company? Have they done anything? Have they sponsored or engaged with this company or brand? That like that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, and I think they're very focused on a personality, an individual, and who they are, and somebody that they feel that they trust. And I think that, maybe that speaks to part of the value of, like, maybe even if you're hesitant about getting on digital, maybe that's a reason to think about, hey, you need to find a way to get comfortable, because I think that people want to see who that voice is, and what they're saying, and without that, but it's a huge opportunity, I still think. As you mentioned, in our industry, I think we are risk averse by nature of what we do, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about it, that's what this whole industry is. I mean, that's what we're doing. But there's an opportunity there to get out there and take that leap, and to be more active. And I think that's going to be more appealing, especially as that next generation comes up. As you said, I mean, they're not looking for a Google search result as much. They want to go to their favorite people on TikTok, or they want to find these people, you know, who they feel are authentic. I think maybe I'm
Yes.
wrong here, and there's no, I haven't done any research on that, but I feel like they're searching for something authentic,
Yes.
and they get that by seeing what somebody's behavior and their conduct, and their personality and what they have to say, and then they trust what they have to say if they've earned that trust.
Exactly. And the only way you can do that in a digital era is to get content
Yeah.
out there, to get your voice out there, to do what we're doing right now, right?
Mhm. No, absolutely. I do it because it's fun, but
Yeah.
no. So I wanted to ask you. I mean, you have a really interesting experience. You used to work with a very popular fashion label, Ralph Lauren, and that
Yes.
is, unless I'm missing something on your work history, I feel like you went from Ralph Lauren to Asa Abloy.
Yes. Yeah. No,
So
there
how
was a
does that
little,
happen?
yeah. So right out of college, I did summer sales throughout college. Sales has
Hmm.
always been like my background. But the hours and the like summer sales is tough. That was like hard work, and it, you know, you can only do a few years before you're burnt out or you make it like your whole life. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I was looking for
Right.
a sales role with something that I enjoyed. And growing up, I actually was pretty poor, and I never had like nice clothes. I always had hand-me-downs. If I wanted something, I had to like, you know, put the work in, buy it with my own money. And so I knew the
Right.
value of like quality clothing, right? And so when the opportunity presented itself to work for Ralph Lauren, I was in heaven. I was like, wait, I get an employee discount on all these clothes. It's like, and I could sell a reputable American made brand. So
Yeah.
it was like something that I could definitely get behind. And I fell in love with the industry. I got I think 9 different promotions in the 8 years that I worked there. I ended up being one of the youngest general managers Ralph Lauren has ever had. And I loved my job until I realized I didn't have a life outside of it. You know, retail is really tough.
Mm,
And it's only getting tougher as those who know who work in the security industry within retail.
yeah.
It's just getting harder and harder to do what we used to do with a handful of people. And you know, I have 2 young boys. They're not as young as they were back then. But my oldest came up to me, is like, Dad, I never see you anymore. And I was like, oh man, that just
Yeah.
like broke my heart. And so I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I love my job, but like working 80 hours a week is not going to work. Like
Right.
I've got to be there for my son. And so I was looking for an opportunity and a job that gave me the flexibility to be with my family. And I knew sales was where I was at. A mentor of mine actually works in the industry. We moved. Ralph Lauren actually moved me to Oregon and then moved me up to Washington. And as soon as I left Oregon, I knew I was looking for an opportunity to get back to Oregon. And so Asa Abloy had a position open up, and my mentor was like, "Hey, I can't get you the job, but I can get you the interview." And the rest was history from there. And I can tell you, like, I love what I do now 100 times more than I did
Yeah.
back in the. I thought I was. I mean, I thought I loved, selling high expensive luxury stylish clothes, right? I thought I was adding value. And in a way I was to some
Yeah.
people, but when you're in the security industry, I think we often overlook like how important what we do is to everyone's day to day. Like if you don't
Yeah.
feel safe at your home or your place of work, like that's your lowest need that you need for you to function. So, yeah, I was obsessed from day one in the industry. I was like, I'm in it for the rest of my life.
I love it. So, I mean, I feel like there's always a lot of discussion about, honestly, I think you're now another in the long line of us that say we kind of fell into it. I think I might have been one of the few that really chose it just because of the way that I came up and I was dealing with multiple disciplines, and I kind of chose this one out of the group to go into the manufacturer side and go full in, which was
Yeah.
probably a decade ago, but was already very familiar with it. I think unless you're like me and you grow up in a family business or in an environment where you were introduced to it very early, I don't think that this is something that people, no little kids drawing the picture. There's like the astronaut, and the army soldier, and then like I want to help build security products. It's just
Yeah.
not,
No.
it's not something anybody really thinks about. So, what do you think our industry can do to improve the awareness of it, to recruit more talent? Because I think there are a lot of people like you that would have so much to offer and would probably love this industry, if it was more obvious to them that this is a choice.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that our industry could do to help promote the industry as a whole to get younger people interested in. But I think where we're playing right now is digital content. I think that's a
Mhm.
very impactful tool that you can educate this younger customer, this younger end user, and how important and impactful our industry can be. These younger kids are they grew up playing Minecraft and Roblox or whatever. They want to build stuff. They want to make an impact in this world. And I'm finding that this new generation coming in, they see that like, hey, yeah, college is great and all, but also it's really expensive, and I don't want to start my life off with a ton of debt. Like
Right.
there are other avenues that we can encourage people to go through. And I think the security industry as a whole is definitely getting better at being that advocate for that younger professional coming in. But as a
Hmm.
whole, if you look at the demographic of the security industry, we're an old industry, right? And
Hmm.
construction and trades as a whole, we're all really old. In the next
Hmm.
5 to 10 years, like a lot of us are going to be retiring, and that's going to leave a huge gap and a huge opportunity for this younger generation to join an industry and really make an impact. So I think
Yeah.
companies need to focus on like, hey, like talk about your company culture and what impact you guys make in people's lives. I think everyone wants to add value in this world. They want to feel important. They want to do something that makes them feel like they're making a difference. And I think the security industry is a fantastic place for people to feel that like empowerment of making a difference. Because what we do is really important.
Yeah. And I mean, when we see the horrible things that nobody wants to think about, and we see those things play out on the news, or we see clips of it out on social, I mean, our industry, we're the ones that are saying, okay, here's how technology maybe could have stopped that, could have
Yeah.
prevented that, could have alerted someone to that better.
Or
And I,
or they only see the bad things that happen. No news story ever happens about the door that kept the intruder out,
right.
right?
Yeah. But I think there's a nice feeling. think we all have our families or our lives, whatever's involved with it, and we need money, and that's why people work. But I think, a lot of your life is work. So I mean, if you can find something that you actually feel good about what you're doing, and you can be proud of it, and you can look at that and say, hey, this has done a lot of good, and I feel good about what I'm spending my time on. I mean, I think you're really adds a lot to your life, in addition to the money that you can make. I think it just makes you a lot happier.
Yeah, I agree. And the companies that are out there promoting that are going to be the ones that collect that
Yeah.
generational gap, that gap that's coming into the industry. And it starts with I think a digital story, right? Your company has to have a digital brand, a voice out there. They've got to be doing what we're doing right now, right?
Yeah. No, I just see like we have probably our 30th Amazon data center being built in the neighborhood. So mixed feelings on that, even though in general we're a cloud product and I do like data centers, but Amazon does a lot of things where they go into the schools and kind of teach the kids about what they do and how technology works and so forth. So, I mean, I have some ideas about maybe have like a fake burglary and, somebody dies and the camera could have saved, but it just sounds risky. So I don't know if I'm going to I don't know if I'm going to pursue that whole skit with the school, but, you know, maybe, maybe that's something that we should think about too, is I do see a lot of other industries really makes I mean, I don't think we do anything for kids in this industry. I
No,
can't think of one. And in fact, I've really had thought about, I grew up in a family business and my son and I do like we started a channel about cars called Joshing Around with Cars.
oh, nice.
And it's terrible. Don't go look at it. It'll get better. Look at it later. But, it's fun and we enjoy it. And, he likes to, be in it. He likes to work the camera. And I thought, man, it'd be really cool if I just like did a work trip with him, maybe take him to ISC. He could hold the
Yeah,
camera for me when we were making all those videos and so forth. And
why not?
we don't
Get them
allow it.
involved. Yeah.
You got to be 18. I think you
Really?
can't even
To
get
go
on the
to
floor. Yeah.
we had maybe this was a
So
special
I'm
case.
thinking like as an industry, we got to find a way to be a little more interesting to the kids or not be, um, we're not intending to be, but I'm sure it's security related. There was the guy, I can't remember who it was on IPVM was talking about. He has like a TikTok channel or something, and he likes to break into events. He likes to
Oh,
sneak in, so I feel like a lot of it's just around doing what we say as an industry and being secure. But man, I feel like there should be a day that you could bring your kid or, um,
yeah,
I
like
mean, we're not telling
SIA
any
or
young people we exist, right?
yeah, SIA or ASIS needs to put something like that together where it's like more of a whole association where they get, hey, like bring your kid to work day, talk about it.
Yeah.
Like I think that's important because I mean a lot of us follow our family members' steps, and
Hmm.
that's how a lot of us get into the industry, right? But I think we could do a lot more, even like in the college sector. Like there aren't really degrees in, like
Right.
security, right? Like you don't really go to college to go to like to earn a degree, and I think maybe a handful of degrees out there, but not really. It's not something you grow up listening about. It's not
Yeah.
something you go to school thinking about. And a lot of the trades in general are like frowned upon. Like if they're like, hey, if you go to if trade, growing up, like trades was like something that you could fall back on if you're like not the smart kid, like
Yeah.
all our teachers were promoting that. And now looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I got my electrical license back then, right? Like
Yeah.
that, like think like an electrician right now, how much in demand they are and how much
Hmm.
they're making. Like, and they get the flexibility because basically everyone will deal with them because they need them so much, right?
Yeah. No, I think the trades are making a comeback personally, and I think there's a lot of technology involved with the trades now, and in most of them, and I think there's a lot more opportunity and a heck of a need for them. I think we lost a whole generation of people that were really holding up the trades, and
Yeah.
as you said, I mean, people disagree with me, but I read a lot of Peter Zion books. If you look around, each generation, the size of the family does get smaller. It can't be too much of a conspiracy to say we're dealing with a population decline in a sense. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, all of these industries are going to need more people, and especially the trades. How are we going to build things? How are we going to produce things? So I feel with my kids, even though we're in a nice area, I do see where they're trying to push that as an option now and say, look, you could go to school and that's quite expensive, but you may love these other things too. And so I think it's nice to see that that's opening up.
That's what I'm talking about.
Love it. So um I guess the last thing I would want to ask you, and this has been a lot of fun, by the way. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's rare someone lets me talk for a little bit about what I'm passionate about, right? This is awesome.
yeah,
Thank you for having
Aaron's gonna be watching this in a rage. He's like, "Oh yeah, you let him talk. You never let me talk."
me.
I mean, you worked for what I would imagine, looking on the outside in. Ralph Lauren is a large company, very well run organization. I would imagine they have a lot of best practices and how things should be done, very exacting standards.
Mhm.
I mean, was there anything that you thought about as you moved into this industry that you thought, hey, here's some things that this industry could learn from Ralph Lauren?
Well, one thing that I really like, probably my biggest thing that I learned from Ralph Lauren is you would have a very limited time to build a relationship with a client. As they walk in, like you go from I'm just looking to being best friends by the time they're done shopping there. And
Yeah,
that was like the idea is you wanted to create an experience as when they walked through that really guided them in their growth for their own personal style. And it was like kind of mind blowing because nobody thinks about shopping that way. A lot of people nowadays just like shop online or they go in exactly what they're
yeah,
looking for. But we tried to make it an experience. And I think that's one thing the security industry could really learn from
I
is
love
how
it.
do you make your systems an experience, right? It's not just about keeping the bad guys out anymore. It's about how can you make the attendant life easier or better, or
Yeah,
how does access control make it easier on the end user or owner that they can then invest and power more time into the community advocacy or programs or something like that. And so I think the experience part of Ralph Lauren, where everything was about the experience. We wanted to make sure they had a fantastic, magical, almost Disney experience as they walked through a store, right? And how do we transition that to security? And I don't know all the answers, and I think we're starting to learn a little bit more about like user experience and how people interact with our
yeah.
products and how they're designed. Like I think there's a whole nother level that like our security industry could grow. And you know Leo Dess, right? Have you met Leo
Mhm.
Dess? I mean, he talks about like the security industry, is like $100 billion market. But if we look at the experience around the security products, it could potentially be upwards of like 900 billion. So
Yeah,
like there's a huge opportunity around the experience side of our products and how they interact with software and systems like that. So I'm really excited to see where the industry is going, but I think there needs to be a focus on the experience. How does your system make people feel? Yeah.
I love that. So I'll tag Angelo. So maybe you'll get another promotion. I think you
Yeah,
just
right.
you just hit another home run here on social media. So, well, I want to make sure people you're a great follow. I love what you do. It's so much fun, and I love that you educate and make it fun. I think that's definitely a step in that experience that we're talking about. But how do people find you? How do they follow you?
LinkedIn is my baby. I'm on there. Just find me. You can Google or just look up the Dork and I'll pop up there. But I am on all other social media platforms. I have a TikTok, Instagram. You can find just at the Dork. You can find me on those platforms as well. But I'd love to connect. I'd love to engage with you, get you connected to the Dork community. And I find I learn from my own posts every day from people
Yeah.
that have forgotten more than I'll ever learn, right? I'll be the first to admit I'm not the smartest guy in the room. And
Well, you are now because you're on with me, but
yeah, no, not even, not even. But I find I learn from my own content every day because of the
yeah,
comments that come in. People argue with each other about like what is right and what is code and what would they do in this situation. And so I think you'd find a lot of value in engaging. So yeah.
I concur. Follow Benji. join that Dork community. I think it's a lot of fun and you'll learn a lot. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. Really, really great time, and hopefully we'll keep growing our networks and doing good things, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Of
Um,
course. Yeah, I would
yeah.
love to. Thanks for having me.
And for everybody else, thanks for suffering through another non-Aaron episode. I mean, he usually carries me, but we've tried to keep it going. Make sure if you have any interest in cloud video and security, we are partnered with Asa Abloy. Go to Qumulex.com, learn all about us, and you can also follow us on all those social channels as well. So with that, we'll give everybody a round of applause for Benji, and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks.
Take care.